Hello and welcome to this video review of Golden Lap from Funselektor Games. This is an F1 management sim which is available on PC and also, pleasantly, on Mac, and it takes place between the years of 1970 and 1979, albeit in a completely fictional Formula 1 universe. I've already previewed this game on my channel, but I've spent a lot of time now with the finished game and there have been some significant improvements, so let's take a look. In the finished game, you can choose from any of the 10 racing teams, each loosely based on a real team from the era, though crucially, this game is not licensed in the slightest. This has allowed Funselektor to go where other racing games rarely tread, offering debuffs to stats due to drivers or engineers partying too hard the night before, injuries after crashes, and even occasional fatalities. Now that didn't happen during the preview build, but the drivers can now miss races due to hospital time or even meet their maker, which can feel really shocking, not only when it happens to one of your own drivers, but also when a front runner from another team suddenly isn't there anymore, their championship position sliding down the order as the season goes on. It's pretty harrowing stuff. This peril is directly linked to another recent addition to the game, namely the stress meter. This rises as you ask your driver to push, and falls when they return to normal racing pace, and falls still quicker if you ask them to drive conservatively. You can shorten or lengthen tyre life accordingly, but the safety of your drivers is arguably an even greater consideration than tyre life and lap time. It's not worth risking a driver's life trying to make up a single position, especially if they're out of the points, so you'll often find yourself accepting a lower position, especially when a track comes with a dangerous rating, which raises the chances of a fatality from a serious crash by 50%. This is all based on real life. The 1970s were a wild time indeed. Underneath all of this is a detailed simulation of the cars, even though they're represented by mere coloured circles on a 2D plan of the track. There's also a basic simulation of component degradation going on, which can be fixed during pit stops and between races, resulting in occasional retirements if it falls too low. Thankfully, even in lower teams, retirements aren't too common, just so long as you perform basic topping up between races. You can also manufacture brand new components, buffed by your choice of engineer, though deciding which driver should get said components can annoy one of your drivers if that's one of their character traits, which causes a drop in performance. All of this interaction works really well, though it does appear that a good driver in a bad car will actually perform better than a bad driver in a better car. Balancing at first appears to be very good, especially as you learn how the game works. However, when you do know how the game works, it comes undone somewhat. I started a new season with the worst team, Knight, and I was trying to get any kind of championship point for the first few races, and when I did, it felt really good, properly rewarding. However, my best driver was then injured in a crash and was out for one race. I spent $4 on his replacement, which doesn't sound like much, but it is in Golden Lap's world. This replacement driver scored 8 points in that one race because, like I said earlier, great drivers make a big difference in this game. Basically, this cemented my championship position to the point where I didn't fix my cars for the last 2 races, instead saving up the money I would have spent for the new season, at which point I was able to replace my drivers with better ones and suddenly won almost everything, consistently putting it on pole and winning 9 of the 10 races. For the worst team to suddenly make it to Red Bull-esque dominance in one season is unrealistic, and all it took was a guest driver and a few dollars in the bank. But to be fair to the game, maybe that is simply me converting some 20 hours of learning it into a strong strategy. Now for the price, that's not a bad return on your investment. 20 hours is quite a long time, and even people who feel they've mastered the game will still be hard pushed to unlock all of the achievements, which include winning the championship with your entire team sharing the same nationality as the manufacturer. That will take some doing. From a technical perspective, graphically it's very simplistic by modern standards, but looks smart enough. Oddly, the text size is pretty tiny, and that can't be changed. Even playing the game at 720p resolution has the same text size as 4K. It also doesn't seem particularly well optimized, running okay at 1080p on my RTX 2070, but starting to drop frames at 4K, even though it's surely a 2D image, albeit with some dynamic cloud graphics going on. The sound is good, with nice music that kicks in when you turn on accelerated time, and decent sound effects like a zoom noise when one of your drivers sets the fastest lap, a golden lap if you will, and a pretty worrying crunch when someone crashes. It's also worth noting that qualifying doesn't feel like a real qualifying session. For starters, a car on wet tyres on a wet track can go faster than a car on soft tyres on a dry track, which doesn't make any sense. Secondly, you'll probably start off trying to time your flying lap carefully, gauging track conditions, including rubber level, and how busy the track is at any given time. But actually, it's much better to literally dash out of the pits as soon as you can and just run as many stints as possible, because each recorded lap allows you to boost your car's stats in the garage when you get back, using a nice little micro game of risk and reward as you spend yellow hexagons on stat buffs, with a small element of chance as to how big those stat buffs will be. Do this enough times and you can golden tune your entire car, but no real team would send their car out this many times in one qualifying session. It's a bit daft. This also means that qualifying begins to lose its appeal as you go through the same process every race. You may be smiling after one race, but then it loads up qualifying for the next, and you'll think, which isn't such a great look. Once you start to not want to play elements of a game, it isn't working. A more traditional, micromanagement-heavy qualifying session would arguably have been better. There are a few other minor annoyances, which include not being able to map driver orders to hotkeys. Instead, the game requires you to use a mouse or a trackpad to select push levels. There's also no way to retire a car that's running, nor escape from a race early if both your drivers have retired. I suppose the simulation needs to complete the race for the other drivers, but surely this could have been accelerated somehow. Still, this is an engrossing and rewarding game for a good while, and I have had a good time with it. Even though I probably won't be returning to it personally, I can see it keeping a lot of people happy. So I give Golden Lap a decent 3.5 stars out of 5. Worth playing, but the game's not without some issues. Well, that's all for this review. If you enjoyed it, please hit like and subscribe, and please do take a look around my channel for more gaming videos, including my new Sega Sundays series, where every Sunday I tackle a different Sega classic from all of the company's back catalogue. Take care until next time, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers.